In the shadows of a world hidden from view, where the line between human and supernatural blurs, emerges a tale of two unlikely heroes. Welcome to the extraordinary saga of Lucas and Elara, werewolves bound not just by their shared nature, but by a relentless quest for justice. Every episode unravels a new chapter in their ongoing battle against the corrupt and the cruel. From the depths of the occult to the heights of corporate towers, they move in silence, striking where least expected. Their mission: to save the innocent and expose the malevolent. Armed with their wits, supernatural abilities, and a bond unbroken by adversity, they face adversaries both human and beyond. In a world where the prey can turn predator and the hunter becomes the hunted, Lucas and Elara navigate the grey areas of morality, justice, and loyalty. Join us as we delve into the heart of darkness, where danger lurks in every corner and courage is the only light. This is not just a journey through the night, it's a quest to bring balance to a world veiled in secrecy and rife with hidden threats. Get ready to enter a realm where myths come alive and heroes are born under the light of the moon. This is the world of Lucas and Elara. This is Lunar Shadows, the chronicles of Lucas and Elara. Chapter 1. Infiltrating the shadows. In the dense whispering forests that skirted the edges of civilization, a hidden community thrived in isolation. Unknown to most, this secluded haven had fallen under the sway of a cult, worshipping an entity they called the Devourer. It was said to be a being of immense power, one that fed on supernatural creatures like vampires and werewolves. Lucas and Elara, after hearing rumors of this cult and the oppressed people within its grasp, made their way towards this cloistered settlement. Their mission was clear: infiltrate the cult, understand its workings, and ultimately dismantle it to free the community. The cult, known as the Order of the Eclipse, had woven itself deeply into the fabric of the forest community. They preached of an imminent summoning, a night when the Devourer would rise and cleanse the world of supernatural beings. Disguised as wanderers seeking refuge, Lucas and Elara approached the community. The air was thick with a sense of foreboding, and the eyes that met them were wary, yet weary. They were led to the heart of the village, where the cult's enigmatic leader, High Priest Oran, presided. Oran was a charismatic figure, his words laced with an unsettling blend of warmth and fanaticism. To gain entry into the order, Lucas and Elara were told they must partake in the ritual of binding, a ceremony said to align their souls with the Devourer. It was a test of loyalty and faith, one they had to pass to infiltrate the inner sanctum of the cult. As the night of the ritual approached, Lucas and Elara prepared themselves. They knew the dangers of what they were about to do, but their resolve was firm. Under the moonlit sky, they joined the other initiates in a clearing, encircled by ancient stones, etched with forgotten runes. High Priest Oran commenced the ritual, chanting in a language that seemed to twist the very air. The initiates were each given a chalice, filled with a brew that Oran claimed would bind them to the Devourer. Lucas and Elara exchanged a glance, an unspoken agreement passing between them, before drinking the concoction. As the ritual reached its zenith, a strange energy pulsed through the clearing. Lucas and Elara felt a shiver run down their spines, a sense of something ancient and malevolent stirring in the shadows. They knew they had successfully infiltrated the Order, but the real challenge was yet to come. In the dead of night, as the rest of the initiates dispersed, Lucas and Elara stayed behind. hidden in the darkness. They had to uncover the truth behind the Devourer and the High Priest's real intentions. The fate of the community, and potentially all supernatural beings, rested in their hands. It's time for a quick scare break. As we linger in these shadowy realms, a small favour I dare to ask. If my tales of terror bring you thrills, do not let our journey end here. Hit like, subscribe, and join our dark congregation. Chapter 2. Captives in the Shadows. As Lucas and Elara moved discreetly around the camp, the grim reality of the Order's activities became increasingly evident. Tucked away in a secluded part of the village, they stumbled upon a hidden enclosure, a makeshift prison where supernatural beings were being held captive. The prisoners were a diverse and forlorn group, a pair of vampires, their once proud features now gaunt and weary, were chained with silver that burned their flesh and nullified their strength. A group of fey creatures, their wings clipped and magic suppressed by enchantments woven into their cages, sat in despondent silence. And in a corner, a lone siren, her voice silenced by a cursed collar, gazed longingly at the sky. These beings, powerful in their own right, were rendered helpless by the Order's meticulous planning. The cult had studied their weaknesses and exploited them, ensuring their captives could not use their abilities to escape or retaliate. Lucas and Elara realized the gravity of the situation. The summoning of the Devourer was scheduled for the next full moon, which was mere days away. They had to act fast if they were to dismantle the cult and save both the captives and themselves. In a moment of opportunity, Elara approached the captives. She spoke softly, assuring them that she and Lucas were there to help, but they would need the captives' assistance in return. Hesitant at first, the captives listened as Elara outlined a plan that would not only free them, but also prevent the summoning of the Devourer. The vampires, despite their weakened state, agreed to share their knowledge of the cult's inner workings. The Fae, their spirits lifting slightly, offered insights into the layout of the camp and the locations of key areas. The Siren, communicating through gestures, indicated she knew where the cult stored their enchanted items. As Lucas and Elara gathered this vital information, a sense of camaraderie began to form between them and the captives. They were all in this together, and their survival depended on mutual trust and cooperation. With the full moon looming, the stakes were higher than ever. Lucas and Elara needed to infiltrate deeper into the cult to understand how to stop the summoning. At the same time, they began to lay the groundwork for their escape plan, one that would free the captives and end the Order's reign of terror. The clock was ticking, and every moment counted as they prepared for the impending confrontation. Chapter 3. A close call. With only a day left before the full moon, tension simmered beneath the surface of the cult's camp. Lucas and Elara, while working diligently to maintain their facade, found themselves under increasing scrutiny. Their interactions with the captives had not gone unnoticed, particularly by one cult member, a man with piercing eyes and an air of suspicion named Marek. Marek's distrust of the newcomers was evident. He watched them with a hawkish gaze, his suspicion growing each time they neared the enclosure of the captives. In his eyes, Lucas and Elara were too inquisitive, too empathetic towards those the cult had deemed enemies. As the day waned, Marek confronted Lucas and Elara. In a secluded spot, away from prying ears, he challenged them, questioning their loyalty and their interest in the captives. Lucas, aware of their precarious position, had to think quickly. His human form offered little protection against the cult, so he relied solely on his wit and guile. With a calm demeanor, Lucas spun a tale. He claimed that they were gauging the strength and weaknesses of the captives, ensuring they posed no threat to the cult's plans. His words were laced with feigned admiration for the Order's cause, painting himself and Elara as devout followers, eager to see the summoning succeed. Marek, though not entirely convinced, found Lucas's explanation plausible. He warned them, however, to focus on the task at hand and avoid unnecessary contact with the captives. As he walked away, Lucas and Elara exchanged a look of relief, aware of how close they had come to being exposed. After the encounter, Lucas whispered to Elara, "We must be careful, especially around that one. He's dangerously perceptive." They knew that any further slip-ups could be catastrophic. Under the cover of night, Elara made her move. She slipped into the area where the cult stored their enchanted items. Using the knowledge they had gathered from the captives, she located a powerful artifact, a talisman that could disrupt the magical barriers confining the supernatural beings. Stealthily, Elara secured the talisman, concealing it away from prying eyes. Its acquisition was a critical step in their plan to free the captives and thwart the cult's summoning of the Devourer. With the full moon rapidly approaching, Lucas and Elara prepared for what could be their most dangerous night yet. The fate of many rested in their hands, and they could not afford to fail. Chapter 4. The Eve of Summoning. As dawn broke on the day of the summoning, an air of ominous expectancy hung over the cult's camp. The members of the Order of the Eclipse, numbering around 40, gathered in a clearing deep within the woods. A makeshift platform had been erected, and upon it stood the cult leader, High Priest Oran, his presence commanding and sinister. Oran addressed his followers with fervor, his voice echoing through the trees. "Tonight, under the full moon, we shall offer the ultimate sacrifice. The supernatural creatures we have captured will be offered to the Devourer. In return, he will grant us unparalleled power. Each of you shall be rewarded for your unwavering loyalty and devotion." The cult members, entranced by his words, began to chant a strange mantra, their voices melding into a haunting melody that resonated with the ancient energy of the forest. The ritualistic hum filled the air, creating an atmosphere charged with anticipation. After the gathering, Oran instructed the cult to rest and prepare for the night's momentous event. As the members dispersed, Lucas, seizing the opportunity, stealthily followed Oran. He needed to gather any last-minute information that could aid their plan to thwart the summoning. Lucas trailed Oran to a secluded spot where he met with Marek. Hidden from view, Lucas eavesdropped on their conversation, but what he heard chilled him to the bone. "When the Devourer is summoned, he will feast upon the power of the supernatural creatures," Oran confided to Marek. "But that's not all. The rest of our followers are mere pawns in our grand design. The Devourer will only grant true power to the most loyal among us. That is you and me, Marek." Lucas's heart raced as he processed the revelation. The cult leader's plan was far more sinister than they had imagined. Not only were the supernatural captives at risk, but the cult members themselves were unwittingly to be sacrificed. Lucas knew he had to act fast. He silently retreated, heading back to find Elara. They needed to accelerate their plans. The stakes were higher than ever, and they were running out of time. As the day progressed, the tension within the camp rose palpably. The evening summoning, under the light of the full moon, would be the climax of their mission, and Lucas and Elara were determined to stop Oran and Marek at all costs. The fate of many hung in the balance, and the night promised to be one of reckoning. Chapter 5. the moonlit reckoning. As night cloaked the forest in its dark embrace, Elara stealthily placed the enchanted item into the captive's enclosure. The two vampires, upon recognizing the talisman's power, exchanged a menacing grin. "Be ready," Elara whispered, a determined glint in her eye. Lucas and Elara, standing amidst the cult members, felt the primal beast within stir restlessly as the full moon began its ascent. The air was thick with anticipation and foreboding. High Priest Oran ascended the platform again, his voice resonating through the gathered crowd. "Tonight, you will all be reborn. The Devourer will take you as his children," Oran proclaimed. At his command, a group of cult members emerged, escorting the bound supernatural being towards the platform. Marek stood beside Oran, instruments of destruction in hand, ready to enact the grim ritual. It was at this moment that Lucas shouted, breaking the tense silence. "Wait, Oran and Marek have no intention of sharing power with you. After the sacrifice, you are all next." Chaos erupted. Marek, along with a contingent of burly cult members, charged through the crowd towards Lucas. "I knew there was something off about you," Marek snarled. "You are two against many." Lucas, with his familiar, unflinching smile, looked up at the moon. "Two giants among insects," he retorted. Beside him, Elara's form was already contorting, transforming into the powerful visage of the wolf. The cult members watched in horror and disbelief as Lucas also began to change. "Party time," he growled. In a desperate move, Oran turned to order the sacrifice's deaths. "The Devourer will feed on these two," he cried, but as he faced the captives, he found the vampires standing free and powerful beside him, their eyes alight with vengeance. They attacked Oran swiftly, taking him by surprise. The other creatures, empowered by the talisman, fought off Oran's personal guard. Panic spread through the cult, many fleeing into the night, leaving only Marek and a core group of hardened members. "We have dealt with your kind before," Marek boasted, drawing a silver sword. Unfortunately, they were not strong enough to last until the ceremony. A fierce battle ensued. Lucas, though wounded by the silver swords, fought on relentlessly. Elara, a whirlwind of teeth and claws, darted through the cultists with lethal grace. However, Lucas found himself cornered, the cultists' enchanted silver slicing through his flesh with ease. Marek laughed triumphantly. "Now you die." But just as Lucas faced his grim fate, a deafening, piercing sound reverberated through the clearing. The cultists fell to the ground, overwhelmed by the sonic assault. Standing with a satisfied smile was the siren, her cursed collar removed, her voice now a weapon of their salvation. "All yours," she declared. Lucas, fueled by the fury of the wolf, made short work of the stunned cultists. One by one, they fell until only Marek remained, his confidence faltering as he witnessed the tide of battle turn against him. The night air was filled with the sounds of the forest and the aftermath of their struggle. Lucas and Elara, standing amidst their fallen foes, knew that they had not only saved the captives, but also thwarted a dark ritual that threatened many. The Order of the Eclipse had been dismantled, and the forest would no longer echo with the chants of its misguided followers. The full moon shone down on them, a silent witness to their victory and the power of those who fight for justice, even in the face of overwhelming odds. Final chapter. Dawn of New Alliances. As the first light of dawn broke through the trees, painting the forest in hues of gold and pink, the liberated creatures gathered in the cave, a sanctuary from the events of the night. The vampires, shielded from the harmful rays of the sun, watched from the shadows, while Marek, now their prisoner, sat bound and defeated. The atmosphere in the cave was one of relief and newfound camaraderie. Each creature took a moment to express their gratitude to Lucas and Elara. They spoke of an unspoken pact, an alliance formed in the heat of battle, offering their assistance should Lucas and Elara ever find themselves in need. The siren, her voice now free to sing the songs of her people, spoke up. There's a corporation involved in the illegal trade of rare animals. But it's not just animals they deal in. They have a trophy, a supernatural creature. I was traded through this corporation before being handed over to the cult. Lucas and Elara exchanged a look of determination. This revelation struck a chord with them, a call to action. They agreed that this corporation would be their next challenge, their next battle in the war against those who exploited and oppressed beings, both human and supernatural. The vampires, with their menacing smiles, led Marek deeper into the cave. The fate that awaited him was unspoken, but understood by all. He had played a pivotal role in the atrocities committed by the cult, and justice, in whatever form it took, was inevitable. As the group disbanded, Lucas and Elara stepped out of the cave, facing the new day. The forest around them was peaceful, a stark contrast to the chaos of the night before. They knew their journey was far from over, but for now, they had made a difference. They had freed the oppressed and dismantled a cult that threatened the balance between the natural and the supernatural. Their path was clear. With new allies and a renewed sense of purpose, Lucas and Elara walked into the morning light, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead in their quest to protect the innocent and bring down those who thrived in the shadows of evil. In the shadows of a world hidden from view, where the line between human and supernatural blurs, emerges a tale of two unlikely heroes. Welcome to the extraordinary saga of Lucas and Elara, werewolves bound not just by their shared nature, but by a relentless quest for justice. Every episode unravels a new chapter in their ongoing battle against the corrupt and the cruel. From the depths of the occult to the heights of corporate towers, they move in silence, striking where least expected. Their mission: to save the innocent and expose the malevolent. Armed with their wits, supernatural abilities, and a bond unbroken by adversity, they face adversaries both human and beyond. In a world where the prey can turn predator and the hunter becomes the hunted, Lucas and Elara navigate the grey areas of morality, justice, and loyalty. Join us as we delve into the heart of darkness, where danger lurks in every corner and courage is the only light. This is not just a journey through the night, it's a quest to bring balance to a world veiled in secrecy and rife with hidden threats. Get ready to enter a realm where myths come alive and heroes are born under the light of the moon. This is the world of Lucas and Elara. This is Lunar Shadows, the Chronicles of Lucas and Elara. Chapter 1. Into the Den of Shadows. In the heart of a bustling metropolis, where skyscrapers kissed the clouds and the streets hummed with ceaseless activity, Elara and Lucas embarked on their next mission. Shadows in high places had brought them to the lair of a corrupt corporation, notorious for its illegal wildlife trade. Elara, adopting the persona of a wealthy and unscrupulous buyer, made her way through the gilded corridors of the corporation's headquarters. Her demeanor was impeccable, exuding the cold, calculated charm of someone accustomed to getting what she wanted. Lucas, meanwhile, remained in the shadows, providing support and gathering intelligence. Their target was the executive suite, where the corporation's dealings were orchestrated. Elara's cover story was her interest in rare, endangered species, with a particular emphasis on acquiring something extraordinary, a hint at her pursuit of a supernatural being. As she navigated the treacherous waters of corporate greed and deception, Elara's natural charisma drew in contacts and potential informants. She expertly weaved through conversations, dropping hints of her substantial financial backing and her desire for the exotic and rare. Her efforts paid off when she caught the attention of a mid-level executive, intrigued by her veiled references to the supernatural. Sensing an opportunity, he cautiously offered to set up a private meeting where they could discuss her special interests in more detail. The meeting was scheduled for that evening in an upscale, discreet location known for its privacy, a favorite haunt for those in the shadows of the corporate world. Elara relayed the details to Lucas, who discreetly monitored the arrangements, ensuring no traps were being set for them. As dusk fell over the city, Elara prepared for the meeting. She chose attire that blended elegance with an air of mystery, perfectly suited for her role. Lucas, always vigilant, took his position nearby, ready to intervene if the situation required. The night promised revelations, and perhaps a step closer to dismantling the corrupt practices of the corporation. Elara, with Lucas ever watchful, was ready to delve deeper into this den of shadows, where the line between the endangered and the exploiter was perilously thin. Chapter 2. The high-stakes bluff. The meeting place was an embodiment of luxury and discretion, nestled in a quiet corner of the city. The dim lighting and plush interiors provided a perfect backdrop for covert deals. Elara, carrying the air of a seasoned buyer, entered with an aura of confidence. She was greeted by a pair of corporate representatives, their eyes gleaming with the anticipation of a lucrative transaction. As they settled into the opulent surroundings, the conversation quickly turned to business. The corporate executives presented Elara with a portfolio of rare, endangered species. Each animal was accompanied by an exorbitant price tag, figures that would make most balk. But Elara, unflinching, reviewed the information with a practiced eye. Her bluff was flawless. With an air of nonchalance, she inquired about their preferred method of payment, treating the astronomical sums as mere trifles. The executives, impressed and somewhat surprised by her ease, eagerly provided account details for the transaction. Without a moment's hesitation, Elara made the transfer. Her bank account, recently bolstered by a generous transfer of over 45 million from a dismantled country club involved in illegal activities, was a crucial asset in their ongoing crusade. The sum, staggering as it was, seamlessly moved from her account to theirs, securing the safety of the endangered animals. As the meeting concluded, Elara subtly hinted at her continued interest in acquiring something far more unique, something that tread the line between reality and the supernatural. The corporate men exchanged uneasy glances. The mention of supernatural beings was uncharted territory for them, but the allure of another lucrative deal was too tempting to dismiss outright. "We'll be in touch if we hear of anything unusual," one of the executives assured her, his curiosity piqued. Elara left the meeting with a sense of accomplishment. The endangered animals were now safe from the clutches of the corporation, and she had planted the seeds of intrigue for their next move. As she departed, the corporate men watched her leave, unaware that they were dealing with a player far beyond their usual clientele. Outside, Lucas, who had been keeping a watchful eye, joined Elara. "Well played," he murmured, impressed by her performance. Elara smiled. a glint of satisfaction in her eyes. The first step is taken. Now we wait for them to reveal more. Together they vanished into the night, their mission progressing smoothly, guided by their unwavering determination to protect those who could not protect themselves. Chapter 3. The Waiting Game. At a sanctuary for rare animals, a convoy of vehicles arrived, carrying precious cargo. The sanctuary's staff watched in amazement as crate after crate was carefully unloaded, each containing a rare and endangered species thought to be lost forever. Their surprise was evident. "We thought these were gone for good," one of the caretakers exclaimed, marveling at the sight of these majestic creatures being returned to safety. Meanwhile, Lucas and Elara were back in their temporary home, a secluded haven away from prying eyes. They sat in contemplative silence, pondering their next move. Elara broke the silence, her tone laced with uncertainty. "We may have to make another attempt to infiltrate this one." Lucas, however, remained thoughtful but optimistic. "I think they'll bite and take the bait," he replied confidently. He leaned forward, his eyes reflecting a deep understanding of their adversaries. In their pursuit of profit and power, they exploit others, believing it to be their right, their path to more. They're driven by a relentless desire to gain at the expense of the vulnerable. It's a cycle they can't break from, and it will lead them back to us. Elara nodded, acknowledging the truth in his words. Their strategy relied on the inherent greed and ambition of their targets, a predictable pattern they had seen time and again. As night fell, their discussion was interrupted by the ping of a message. Elara checked her phone and read the new message with a raised eyebrow. "We may have something of interest," it read, "but it'll cost big." A smile spread across Elara's face. The bait had been taken. She showed the message to Lucas, who nodded in approval. This was the opening they had been waiting for, the next step in their mission to uncover and dismantle the corporation's darker dealings. They knew the journey ahead would be fraught with danger and moral dilemmas. Yet, united in their purpose, Lucas and Elara were prepared to face whatever challenges lay ahead, guided by a shared commitment to protect the innocent and bring those who exploited them to justice. The game was afoot, and they were ready to play. It's time for a quick scare break. As we linger in these shadowy realms, a small favour I dare to ask. If my tales of terror bring you thrills, do not let our journey end here. Hit like, subscribe, and join our dark congregation. I must extend my deepest, most sinister thanks to those souls brave enough to support our chilling journey. Your contributions, kindred spirits, are the lifeblood of our channel. They help me continue to craft the haunting tales that send shivers down your spine and keep you awake at night, pondering what lurks in the shadows. If you too find yourself captivated by our chilling chronicles and wish to help the channel, consider clicking the thanks button below. Your support, dear viewer, is not just a contribution. It's a lifeline that allows me to continue weaving these terrifying tales just for you. Let's embrace the darkness once more. Let's get back to the shadows. Chapter 4. The Moonlight Trap. Elara stood alone at the designated meeting spot, an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of the city. The silence was broken by the sound of a car pulling up. 4 burly security men stepped out, surveying the area with professional caution. Then, a large man emerged from the vehicle, the owner of the corporation, his presence commanding and self-assured. "After our last transaction, I know you're good for the money," he said, appraising Elara with a calculating gaze. "This one is special, but the price is high. 10 million. Elara unfazed by the sum, nodded coolly. "Show me what you have. I want to make sure I don't have one already." "Oh, you won't have one of these," the man replied confidently, gesturing towards a truck that had just pulled up. The men unloaded a crate, heavy and securely locked. They opened it to reveal its contents. Inside was a woman, caged like an animal, her eyes filled with a mix of fear and defiance. "What is this?" Elara asked, her voice betraying a flicker of shock. The man chuckled, pulling a peculiar-looking torch from his bag. "Just watch," he said, turning on the torch and shining its beam at the woman's face. Instantly, her features began to contort, shifting into something not quite human. He turned off the torch before the transformation could complete. "A torch that mimics moonlight," he explained. "She's a werewolf. I'm sure you don't have one of these." He held up the torch, now a bargaining chip. "And I'll throw this in as a gesture of goodwill." Without warning, he clicked the torch again, directing the artificial moonlight onto Elara. Her body involuntarily responded to the light, beginning to change under its influence. The man's eyes widened in realization and amusement. "Oh, my dear," he said slyly. "Get her. I see why you wanted something unusual. Lonely, were we?" Before Elara could react, the security men overpowered her, throwing her into the cage with the other woman. The door slammed shut, leaving them trapped together. The woman in the cage turned to Elara, her expression one of empathy and regret. "I'm sorry," she whispered. Elara, her transformation halted, looked back at her fellow captive. "It's not your fault," she replied, her mind racing to devise a new plan. Outside the cage, the corporation owner smiled triumphantly, unaware that he had just captured one of the most formidable werewolves alive. In his greed and arrogance, he had underestimated his prey. Elara, even in this dire situation, was already formulating a plan for escape and retribution. The night was far from over, and the true nature of the captives was yet to be fully revealed. Chapter 5. A Cunning Escape Plan. Lucas, hidden in the shadows, watched the scene unfold with a mix of amusement and frustration. "Not again, Elara," he murmured, a half smile playing on his lips. He knew he had to intervene, yet a part of him recalled a time when Elara had left him in a similar predicament, chained and trapped for months. "Oh well, I'll come to the rescue. But a little nap first won't hurt." Settling himself in a more comfortable position, Lucas allowed himself to drift into a deep sleep, confident in both their abilities to handle challenging situations. Inside the back of the truck, Elara, now caged alongside the mysterious woman, knew time was of the essence. She needed to formulate an escape plan quickly. Turning to the woman, she asked, "Who are you? And how did you end up here?" The woman, who introduced herself as Maya, had a story that was both heartbreaking and familiar. She had been living a quiet, secluded life, managing to keep her lycanthropic nature a secret. But one fateful night, she was captured by hunters who sold her to the corporation. Maya's life had since been a series of cages and experiments. Her captors, fascinated by her ability to transform under the moonlight. As evening approached, the security team began to move with increased urgency. "Hurry, it's night soon and the moon will be out. Transfer the prisoners to the facility," barked the team leader in military precision. Elara and Maya were moved to a secure location, a room specially designed to prevent their transformation. The room was devoid of any natural light, illuminated instead by a unique UV lighting system that mimicked daylight. "As long as they're here, they cannot change," shouted one of the security team members, locking the door behind them. Meanwhile, Lucas awoke from his slumber, refreshed and ready for action. He stretched leisurely, a sense of satisfaction washing over him. "That was great," he said to himself. Gazing up at the moon, he sighed. "Oh well, time to be the hero again." Lucas knew that breaking into the facility wouldn't be easy, but he had a few tricks up his sleeve. Armed with his knowledge of security systems and his supernatural abilities, he prepared to infiltrate the corporation's stronghold. It was time to free Elara and Maya, and he was more than ready for the challenge. The night was theirs, and under the watchful eye of the moon, Lucas set off to enact his daring rescue plan. Chapter 6. The Howl of Vengeance. The facility, a fortress of high-tech security and vigilance, was bathed in the harsh light of numerous spotlights. Every potential entry point was meticulously monitored, leaving no room for a stealthy approach. But Lucas had other plans. At the main gate, a series of loud knocks echoed through the night. The security team, alert and ready, rushed to the entrance. Standing there was a lone man, unarmed and smiling confidently. "I'll huff and I'll puff and I'll blow your house down, little pigs. Let me in," Lucas taunted playfully. The response was immediate and brutal. The security team opened fire, and Lucas fell to the ground. But to their shock, he rose again, his body contorting and reshaping into the formidable form of a werewolf. "That hurt," he roared, his voice a mix of pain and anger. Back in the fortified cell, Elara heard the commotion and smirked. "About time," she muttered. Maya, witnessing this bizarre turn of events, looked on with wide eyes, her confusion slowly turning to understanding. Fully transformed, Lucas, now a towering werewolf, advanced on the security team. Bullets seemed to have little effect on him. With a mighty howl, he lunged into action, tearing through the security personnel with ferocious ease. Some of the guards, overcome with fear, fled, while others stood their ground, only to meet a swift and brutal end. "He's unstoppable," one of the security team members yelled in terror. As Lucas wreaked havoc, the cell door to Elara and Maya's cell swung open. "Wait, don't come in," Elara warned, stepping out into the corridor. Turning to Maya, she said, "Let's pay the boss man a visit." The next morning, the owner of the organization sat in his office, a picture of defeat. His once impregnable facility lay in ruins around him. On his computer screen, the balance of his accounts read 0. He had been forced to transfer everything to Elara's hidden account, his fortune now fueling their mission. Maya, now free, expressed her gratitude to Lucas and Elara. "I can't thank you enough," she said earnestly, "but before I go, there's something you should know." She told them about an orphanage that was a front for a dark network involved in child trafficking. Her information provided them with their next target, another chance to make a difference. With determined looks, Lucas and Elara prepared to embark on their new mission. The orphanage would be their next stop in their ongoing fight against the darkness that lurked in the shadows of society. Their journey was far from over, but together they were a force to be reckoned with. In the shadows of a world hidden from view, where the line between human and supernatural blurs, emerges a tale of two unlikely heroes. Welcome to the extraordinary saga of Lucas and Elara, werewolves bound not just by their shared nature, but by a relentless quest for justice. Every episode unravels a new chapter in their ongoing battle against the corrupt and the cruel. From the depths of the occult to the heights of corporate towers, they move in silence, striking where least expected. Their mission, to save the innocent and expose the malevolent. Armed with their wits, supernatural abilities, and a bond unbroken by adversity, they face adversaries both human and beyond. in a world where the prey can turn predator and the hunter becomes the hunted, Lucas and Elara navigate the grey areas of morality, justice, and loyalty. Join us as we delve into the heart of darkness, where danger lurks in every corner and courage is the only light. This is not just a journey through the night, it's a quest to bring balance to a world veiled in secrecy and rife with hidden threats. Get ready to enter a realm where myths come alive and heroes are born under the light of the moon. This is the world of Lucas and Elara. This is Lunar Shadows, the Chronicles of Lucas and Elara. Chapter 1. Unveiling the Shadows. Lucas and Elara sat in their temporary base, a nondescript apartment nestled in the heart of the city. The room was filled with an assortment of maps, photos and documents, all related to their next mission, the mysterious case of the nightmare at the orphanage. The walls were lined with information about the orphanage in question. The more they delved into the details, the more sinister the situation appeared. Children had been vanishing without a trace, and all clues pointed to something far more malevolent than mere criminal activity. At the center of their investigation was the orphanage's owner, a reclusive figure shrouded in mystery. As Lucas and Elara pieced together bits of information from various sources, a chilling picture began to emerge. The owner was not just a corrupt individual exploiting vulnerable children. He was, in fact, a minor demon, one who thrived on the suffering of others. "This is more complicated than we thought," Elara said, her eyes dark with concern. "A demon. They're more powerful than we are, and far more dangerous." Lucas nodded in agreement, his usual confidence tempered by the gravity of their discovery. "We need to tread carefully," he cautioned. "A direct confrontation could be disastrous." The two of them reviewed the data they had collected, trying to find a weakness they could exploit. But the more they learned, the more daunting the task seemed. "We might need help on this one," Lucas finally admitted, a rare note of hesitation in his voice. "Someone who knows how to handle demons." Elara sighed, the weight of the situation pressing down on her. "Agreed. We can't risk those children's lives, and we can't go in unprepared." As they sat in contemplation, the room felt smaller, the walls closing in with the enormity of their task. But despite the overwhelming odds, their resolve did not waver. They were determined to save the children and bring the demon to justice. The night was young, and the streets outside were alive with the hum of the city. Lucas and Elara knew that their next steps had to be calculated and precise. The lives of innocent children hung in the balance, and failure was not an option. The chapter closed with them deep in planning, ready to face one of their most challenging adversaries yet. In the fight against darkness, they stood united, their courage and determination their greatest weapons. It's time for a quick scare break. As we linger in these shadowy realms, a small favour I dare to ask. If my tales of terror bring you thrills, do not let our journey end here. Hit like, subscribe, and join our dark congregation. I must extend my deepest, most sinister thanks to those souls brave enough to support our chilling journey. Your contributions, kindred spirits, are the lifeblood of our channel. They help me continue to craft the haunting tales that send shivers down your spine and keep you awake at night, pondering what lurks in the shadows. If you too find yourself captivated by our chilling chronicles and wish to help the channel, consider clicking the thanks button below. Your support, dear viewer, is not just a contribution. It's a lifeline that allows me to continue weaving these terrifying tales just for you. Let's embrace the darkness once more. Let's get back to the shadows. Chapter 2. The Shadow of Despair. In the grim halls of the orphanage, the owner, whom they called Mortis, revelled in the despair that permeated the air. His laughter, cold and devoid of any humanity, echoed through the corridors. "It tastes so sweet," he whispered, absorbing the anguish of the children locked in their rooms, hungry and desolate. Mortis, a minor demon granted temporary leave from his infernal realm, thrived on the suffering he inflicted. To him, the orphanage was a banquet of misery, each child a source of nourishment for his dark soul. A woman, his loyal assistant, approached him with a deferential bow. "Master, we have a new delivery of stock," she reported, her voice a mix of fear and respect. Mortis's eyes gleamed with malicious delight. "Oh, excellent," he exclaimed. A group of 4 children, kidnapped from the streets of a distant city, were brought before him. Their cries and pleas only served to feed his twisted hunger. "Those in rooms 5 and 6 are broken," Mortis mused, a cruel smirk on his lips. "They have given up, no longer fueling me with their pain. Sell them to whoever wants them." "Yes, master," the woman replied, her voice a hollow echo of obedience. Outside the orphanage, hidden in the shadowy embrace of the tree line, stood a figure. His face was aged and decayed, a testament to the centuries he had endured. Eldridge, an ancient vampire, had been monitoring the orphanage for some time. His friend Clara, a reporter with a nose for the supernatural, had tipped him off about the horrors within. Eldridge had hoped to find a way to free the captive children and exact vengeance on Mortis. However, his vigil had led him to a daunting conclusion. The minor demon was a formidable adversary, too powerful to confront alone. The vampire's age-old wisdom told him that this battle required allies, ones who understood the nature of such evil. His thoughts turned to whispers he had heard, tales of 2 werewolves, Lucas and Elara, who had been waging their own war against the darkness. As the night deepened, Eldridge knew that the time had come to seek out these allies. Only together could they hope to challenge Mortis and bring an end to the nightmare at the orphanage. The children's cries haunted the ancient vampire, fueling his resolve to bring down the demon and his reign of terror. Chapter 3. An Unlikely Alliance. In the dim light of their temporary hideout, Lucas and Elara were grappling with the formidable challenge of confronting Mortis. "His darkness is too much for us," Lucas admitted, frustration in his voice. "I can't see a way to win this one." "There has to be a way," Elara insisted, her determination unwavering. Suddenly, a voice echoed from the shadows, halting their conversation. "There is a way," said the voice, deep and ancient. Lucas and Elara whirled around, ready for combat, only to see an aged figure stepping out of the darkness. "Stand down. I'm an ally," said the figure, his demeanor calm yet commanding. He introduced himself as Eldridge, an ancient vampire who had been keeping a watchful eye on Mortis. "I too have tried to confront this Mortis, but he is too strong for me, and for you," Eldridge explained. "Even together, he may overpower us. However, Mortis is not his real name. If we can discover his true name, it will weaken him, giving us a chance." Lucas, intrigued, asked, "You know who we are?" "Of course," Eldridge replied, with a hint of a smile. "I have lived for hundreds of years. There isn't much I don't know." Elara, still cautious, questioned his motives. "But you're a vampire. Why would you care?" Eldridge's expression turned thoughtful. "My dear, you really must throw out the comic books on vampires. Yes, we feed on the living, as do you and every other being on this planet. Just on a different species, but being centuries old, my intellect has also grown. I've come to see the power in mankind, and that power lies in the individual, not the collective. He continued, true strength, the kind that can change the world, comes from the individual's ability to think, to choose, and to act independently. Collectivism, the kind that Mortis represents, seeks to control and to feed off others' pain and submission. It strips away individuality, creating a monolith of suffering. This goes against the very essence of what makes us truly powerful as beings. We thrive on our uniqueness, our capacity for independent thought and action. Lucas and Elara listened, absorbing his words. Eldridge's perspective, shaped by centuries of existence, offered a new angle to their plan. The unlikely alliance between a vampire and two werewolves, bound by a common goal, began to take shape. Together, they would find Mortis's true name and bring an end to his reign of terror, each contributing their unique strengths to the fight ahead. Chapter 4. The Cryptic Clue. After a day spent scouring every resource available, Elara in front of her computer and Lucas delving into ancient texts at the library, they reconvened at their temporary base, empty-handed and frustrated. They were at a loss for their next move, when a message pinged on Elara's phone. It was from someone named Clara. Hi, friend of Eldridge. Priest, town, location, exorcist. He can give you the name, but tread with caution. Clara. Can we trust these people? Elara asked, skepticism in her voice. Vampires always have an ulterior motive, and it's never good. What choice do we have? Lucas countered. We're like puppies to Mortis. We need an edge. Determined, they set out to meet the priest Clara had mentioned. They found him in a dilapidated church in an old part of town. The priest was a dishevelled, erratic figure, his eyes betraying a history of facing unimaginable horrors. He ranted and raved, splashing holy water on Lucas and Elara, swinging his walking stick at them in a frenzy. The mention of Mortis stopped him in his tracks. No, I am not doing that again. No, 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 he protested vehemently. We just need his real name, Elara insisted, her voice calm yet firm. The priest, after a moment of tense silence, uttered a cryptic clue. The demon's name, a twisted mirror of his game. In Latin lies his fame. Reverse the flow to reveal his name. Elara pondered the riddle, her mind racing. Lucas watched her, knowing her knack for solving complex puzzles. After some time, her eyes lit up. The clue, she said excitedly. It's about reversing something. His name is a reverse of a Latin word related to his actions, to inflict suffering or pain. Quickly, Elara scribbled down some Latin words related to pain and suffering. Dolor, tormentum, cruciamentum. She then began reversing them. Rolod, Mutnamrot, Mutnikirk. Mutnamrot, Lucas read aloud. It doesn't sound right. Elara then tried cruciamentum, reversing it to Mutnamarkirk. She broke it down. Mutanemarkirk. Mutan. Ikirk. Wait, it's not a direct reversal. What if it's an anagram? Rearranging the letters, she finally landed on a name that seemed to click. Kruentamui. Their eyes met, a shared realization dawning on them. Kruentamui, Lucas repeated. It means bloodstained. That could be it. It fits him. With this new piece of the puzzle, Lucas and Elara now had a potential weapon against Mortis. They thanked the priest, who had calmed down considerably and left the church, a new sense of purpose guiding their steps. The battle against Mortis was far from over, but they now had a crucial key to weakening the demon's power. Chapter 5. Preparing for the confrontation. In the dimly lit room of their temporary base, Lucas and Elara shared their discovery with Eldridge. The ancient vampire listened intently as they explained the riddle and its solution. Cruentamui. He nodded slowly, his eyes reflecting centuries of knowledge. It sounds right, he agreed. But remember, if we're wrong, we're all dead. Lucas acknowledged the risk. We need to wait just 2 more days for the full moon. That's when we make our move. The full moon would amplify their powers, giving them a fighting chance against Mortis. As they huddled around a worn table, the trio began to formulate their plan. Eldridge, though a vampire of great age and wisdom, confessed his limitations in direct combat. I may be a vampire, but I'm not the formidable fighter of legend, he said with a rueful smile. Years of battles and the toll of time have left me more fragile than I once was. I'm not the immortal warrior the comics depict, my dear. Eldridge assured them he would support their efforts in other ways. I'll be the brains, while you two are the brawn, he proposed. I'll work in the background, orchestrating our strategy and providing you with the information and resources you need. Lucas and Elara nodded in agreement, understanding the importance of each of their roles in the upcoming confrontation. They discussed Mortis's likely defenses, including his servants, who would undoubtedly be formidable foes in their own right. The plan was to use Cruentamui's name to weaken Mortis, breaking the demonic shield that protected him. Lucas and Elara would then engage him directly, utilizing their werewolf strength and agility. Eldridge would ensure that their approach was strategic, creating diversions and disrupting Mortis's plans from the shadows. The atmosphere was tense. They knew the stakes were high, and failure was not an option. As the hours ticked by, each of them retreated into their thoughts, mentally preparing for the battle ahead. Lucas and Elara reviewed combat techniques, while Eldridge gathered intelligence on the layout of the orphanage and the habits of Mortis's servants. They were a team brought together by circumstance, but united in their resolve to end the nightmare at the orphanage and bring Mortis to justice. As the night of the full moon approached, Lucas, Elara, and Eldridge readied themselves for what could be their most dangerous mission yet. The fate of the innocent children and the takedown of a powerful demon rested in their hands. Chapter 6. The Fall of Mortis. The night of the full moon had arrived, casting an eerie glow over the orphanage. Lucas, Elara, and Eldridge stood outside, preparing for the confrontation ahead. It's time, Lucas said, his voice steady. I hope this works, Elara murmured, anxiety lacing her words. If it doesn't, we won't know about it, Eldridge quipped, his tone darkly humorous. Lucas approached the front door and knocked. Elara sighed. He always has to use the front door. Bravado or stupidity, Eldridge mused as he merged with the shadows. One of Mortis's servants answered the door. Yes, he began, but his inquiry was cut short as Eldridge's shadow passed through him, leaving him lifeless on the floor. We don't have time for this, Eldridge stated in his shadow form. They entered the building, immediately assaulted by the cries and wails of the children. The sound was harrowing, a cacophony of pain and suffering. He enjoys this, Elara said, disgust evident in her voice. As they moved deeper into the orphanage, they encountered Mortis's servants blocking their path. Leave this to me, Eldridge said, his shadow form darting towards the servants with supernatural speed, incapacitating them one by one. Suddenly, Eldridge's form was flung back violently, hitting the wall before collapsing into his frail human form. How dare you? A deep, dark voice boomed. You dare to enter my domain. It was Mortis. Any time now would be great, Mr. Moon, Lucas muttered. As Mortis approached, tall and menacing, Eldred lay unconscious. Elara attempted to speak the demon's name, but her transformation under the moon's influence had begun, rendering her speechless. Mortis charged, effortlessly pushing Elara across the room. Lucas, also transforming, lunged at Mortis, but the demon dodged his attacks with ease, swatting him aside. Both werewolves lay on the floor, overpowered by Mortis's strength. In their werewolf forms, they tried to speak the name, but it came out as a growl rather than words. Mortis saw his opportunity and prepared to deliver the final blow. Just then, Eldridge, regaining consciousness, uttered the name in clear, crisp English. Cruentamui? Mortis froze, turning towards Eldridge in disbelief. How? He demanded. With a sly smile, Eldridge returned to his shadow form. Seizing the moment, Elara and Lucas attacked Mortis from behind, unleashing their full fury. Teeth and claws tore into the demon, overwhelming him with their primal strength. Mortis lay defeated on the floor, his body beginning to vanish. His final word, a defeated, echoed through the room. In the aftermath, the orphanage was silent. The children, sensing the change, slowly emerged from their rooms, their expressions shifting from fear to cautious hope. Lucas, Elara, and Eldridge, though exhausted, shared a look of triumph. They had overcome impossible odds, brought down a powerful demon, and liberated the children from their nightmare. As the first light of dawn crept into the orphanage, it was a new beginning for those who had suffered under Mortis's reign. The night's events had forged an unbreakable bond between the werewolves and the ancient vampire, a testament to the power of unity and courage in the face of darkness. Final chapter, Parting Ways. In the calm aftermath of their victory, Lucas, Elara, and Eldridge stood outside the orphanage, ready to part ways. The first light of dawn painted the sky, symbolizing a new beginning. Eldridge turned to Lucas and Elara, a look of genuine respect in his age-old eyes. I must say, I admire you two, not because of any altruistic notion, but for your steadfast defense of the individual. In a world where the individual's voice is often drowned out by collective agendas, you stand up for those who cannot stand for themselves. You recognize the importance of each person's right to live their own life, to make their own choices. That's a rare quality. Lucas and Elara nodded, understanding the depth of his words. They had always fought for those who were overlooked and oppressed, valuing each life as unique and important. Eldridge continued, Before I leave, there's something else. It's about a place they call the Ghost Town Heist. A once thriving town, now abandoned, under the control of a ruthless gang. It's said to be a ghost town, literally. I'm afraid my abilities aren't suited for such a task, but perhaps you might be able to help. Lucas and Elara exchanged a look, intrigued by this new challenge. We'll look into it, Lucas promised. The idea of a ghost town controlled by a gang sparked their curiosity and sense of justice. Eldridge smiled. I had a feeling you would. He turned to leave, his form blending into the morning shadows. As Eldridge disappeared, Lucas and Elara prepared to set out for their next adventure. The ghost town heist awaited them, another chapter in their ongoing battle against the darkness. They walked away from the orphanage, their spirits united in purpose. Their journey was far from over, but they were ready for whatever challenges lay ahead, driven by their belief in the power and rights of the individual. The legacy of their actions at the orphanage would be a beacon of hope for those who had lost their voice, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, there are those who will fight for the light. In the shadows of a world hidden from view, where the line between human and supernatural blurs, emerges a tale of two unlikely heroes. Welcome to the extraordinary saga of Lucas and Elara, werewolves bound not just by their shared nature, but by a relentless quest for justice. Every episode unravels a new chapter in their ongoing battle against the corrupt and the cruel. From the depths of the occult to the heights of corporate towers, they move in silence, striking where least expected. Their mission: to save the innocent and expose the malevolent. Armed with their wits, supernatural abilities, and a bond unbroken by adversity, they face adversaries both human and beyond. In a world where the prey can turn predator and the hunter becomes the hunted, Lucas and Elara navigate the grey areas of morality, justice, and loyalty. Join us as we delve into the heart of darkness, where danger lurks in every corner and courage is the only light. This is not just a journey through the night, it's a quest to bring balance to a world veiled in secrecy and rife with hidden threats. Get ready to enter a realm where myths come alive and heroes are born under the light of the moon. This is the world of Lucas and Elara. This is Lunar Shadows, the chronicles of Lucas and Elara. Chapter 1. Shadows and Spirits. Lucas and Elara sat in the back of their rugged vehicle, maps and notes scattered around them as they approached the outskirts of what was known as the ghost town. The town, once bustling and lively, had turned into a desolate shell, its streets empty, buildings decaying, and a palpable sense of despair hanging in the air. "So, we're dealing with ghosts now," Lucas grumbled, his tone laced with discomfort. "I hate ghosts the worst. You can't punch them, you can't bite them. How do you fight something you can't touch?" Elara, scanning through an old book, replied calmly, "We're not here to fight them, Lucas. We need to free them. This evil witch has enslaved the spirits of the town, using their energy for her dark rituals. She's feeding off them to remain young and control something even more sinister." Lucas frowned, his usual confidence tempered by the complexity of their mission. "A witch, huh? You do realize witches can be tricky. She could potentially manipulate us, use our powers against us, or even strip them away." Elara nodded, aware of the risks, which is why we need to be careful and gather as much information as we can before we confront her. As they continued their journey towards the heart of the ghost town, they discussed various strategies and contingencies. They knew they had to approach this mission with caution and intelligence. Upon arriving, the town seemed eerily still, as if frozen in time. The silence was unnerving, broken only by the occasional creak of a swinging sign or the distant echo of a ghostly whisper. They decided to split up. Lucas to scout the perimeter and look for any physical signs of the witch's presence, and Elara to delve deeper into the town's history, searching for clues in local records and any remaining personal belongings in the abandoned homes. The more they discovered, the more they realized the depth of the witch's control. She had not only enslaved the spirits, but had also cast a shadow over the land, draining it of its life and vibrancy. As they regrouped, they shared their findings. "The witch is more powerful than we thought," Elara said, her voice tinged with concern. "But these spirits, they were once people of this town. They deserve to be freed from her grasp." Lucas nodded in agreement, his resolve firming. "Then let's free them, and let's put an end to whatever this witch is planning. For the town, for those spirits, and for whatever she's trying to control." They packed their gear and set off into the heart of the ghost town, ready to face the unknown challenges ahead. Their journey was fraught with danger, but they were determined to bring light back to a place shrouded in darkness. The ghost town heist was more than a mission. It was a fight for the souls of the lost and a stand against the corrupt power of the witch. It's time for a quick scare break. As we linger in these shadowy realms, a small favour I dare to ask. If my tales of terror bring you thrills, do not let our journey end here. Hit like, subscribe, and join our dark congregation. Chapter 2. The Sinister Witch. In the heart of the ghost town, shrouded in the perpetual twilight cast by her dark magic, the witch, known as Ravenna, loomed as a figure of pure malevolence. Her presence was a blight upon the land, her power vast and dangerous. Ravenna, a collector of spirits, had long ago cast a malevolent spell over the town, a dark incantation that had ensnared the souls of its residents. These spirits, once free and vibrant, were now trapped, bound to her will, their energy continuously drained to fuel her unnatural youth and strength. In her lair, a twisted reflection of the town's once cherished community hall, Ravenna performed her ghastly ritual. With a wave of her hand, a tormented spirit was ripped from its ethereal prison and brought before her. As she siphoned its energy, the spirit's essence began to fade, its existence slowly extinguished until nothing remained. With each spirit consumed, Ravenna's power grew, her eyes glowing with a fierce, unholy light. Beside her stood a disciple, a once innocent soul, corrupted by her promise of power. "When I have gathered enough strength," Ravenna explained with a voice as cold as death, "I will open a portal to the nether. There, I have forged a pact with the demons that dwell in its shadows. They will enter our world, and under my command, we will usher in an era where I reign supreme, the most powerful being on earth." The disciple listened, his face a mixture of fear and awe. Ravenna's ambition knew no bounds, and her disciple understood the magnitude of her plans. Elsewhere, within the spectral confines of their imprisonment, the spirits of the town huddled together, fear etched into their ghostly faces. They were aware of their fading existence, each ritual bringing them closer to oblivion. Their whispers were filled with despair, mourning the lives they once had and the uncertainty of what lay beyond Ravenna's grasp. As Ravenna continued her preparations, the air around her crackled with dark energy, the very atmosphere tainted by her malevolent intent. The town, once a haven of life and laughter, now stood as a monument to her cruelty, a place where hope seemed lost and shadows ruled unchallenged. Chapter 3. The Scout Mission. In a makeshift base, just outside the ghostly perimeter of the town, Lucas and Elara were deep in discussion. The dim light of a single lantern flickered across the dead, determined faces. "Do we know any witches?" Lucas asked, a hint of urgency in his voice. "No, not friendly ones anyway," Elara responded, scanning through her notes for any useful information. "There's no intel, no backup. We have no idea what we're up against. We can't just waltz in against a witch," Lucas said, his frustration evident. "Why don't you just knock on the front door? Isn't that your usual plan?" Elara replied with a teasing smirk. Lucas laughed, a brief respite from the tension. He playfully grabbed Elara, and they engaged in a spontaneous sparring session, using jiu-jitsu to release some of the built-up stress. Their movements were a blend of grace and power, a dance of combat, born from years of fighting side by side. After their playful fight, they lay in each other's arms, catching their breath. "How are we going to do this?" Lucas asked, looking up at the ceiling. "Well, it's your turn to get caught," Elara said, half jokingly. "I knew it," Lucas replied with mock indignation. The plan was straightforward. They would wait for the moon to rise, enhancing their werewolf abilities. Lucas would then enter the town to scout, gather intelligence, and assess the situation. The goal was to avoid direct confrontation with the witch until they had a better understanding of her powers and weaknesses. "Let's go," Lucas said, standing up with a newfound determination. He was ready to face whatever lay ahead, knowing that every piece of information could be crucial to their mission. As night fell and the moon rose, casting its silver glow over the ghost town, Lucas made his way into the heart of darkness. Every step was cautious and calculated, his senses heightened, ready to detect any sign of the witch or her minions. Elara watched from a distance, ready to act if needed. Her trust in Lucas was unwavering, but so was her concern for his safety. Lucas disappeared into the shadows of the town, the fate of the trapped spirits and their own mission resting heavily on his shoulders. The night was filled with unknown dangers, but Lucas and Elara were no strangers to peril. This was just another challenge in their unending battle against the forces of darkness. Chapter 4. Captured. Lucas nimbly traversed the rooftops of the ghost town, his movements a blend of agility and stealth. In his mind, he amused himself with the thought of being the parkour wolf, leaping and climbing with ease. His goal was clear: to gather as much intelligence as possible without alerting the witch. As he moved closer to the heart of the town, he noticed a section bathed in a dim, eerie purple light. At its center stood a large building, exuding an aura of dark power. It was undoubtedly the witch's main base. Using the shadows to his advantage, Lucas silently approached, finding a window through which he could peer inside. The scene that unfolded before his eyes was both fascinating and terrifying. The witch, a vortex of dark energy, stood near a massive contraption that hummed with a sinister energy, the spirit trap holding the souls of the town. Lucas felt a wave of power emanating from the witch, but before he could retreat, she sensed his presence. His heart sank as he felt his form begin to revert to human. Despite the full moon, the witch's magic was overpowering, forcing his transformation to reverse. "Oh crap," he muttered as he began to lose his grip on the rooftop. The decaying building offered no support, and he slipped, plummeting to the ground below and landing with a heavy thud, rendered unconscious by the impact. From her hidden vantage point, Elara watched in horror. "No!" she screamed, her voice a mix of fear and desperation. When Lucas regained consciousness, he found himself bound to a post inside the witch's hall. His head throbbed painfully, a steady trickle of blood running down from a gash on his forehead. "This is perfect," the witch crooned, her voice dripping with malice. "Now I have a delicious treat for my minions when they arrive." Lucas, despite his predicament and the pain he was in, retorted with his usual bravado, "I'm all gristle and bone." His eyes scanned the room, searching for any means of escape or a way to communicate with Elara. The witch, reveling in her newfound captive, began to prepare for the arrival of her minions. Lucas knew he had to act fast. Somewhere beyond these walls, Elara was waiting, and he had no intention of becoming a feast for whatever creatures the witch had summoned. The situation was dire, but Lucas and Elara had faced seemingly insurmountable odds before. Even in the depths of the witch's lair, hope was not lost. Lucas's mind raced, formulating a plan of escape and waiting for the right moment to strike. The night was far from over, and the witch had underestimated the cunning and resilience of the parkour wolf. Chapter 5. The Witch's Grasp. Lucas, bound and helpless, surveyed his surroundings, his gaze landing on the spirits confined in the magical prison. "Ghosts," he muttered, a mix of disdain and unease in his voice. Despite his bravado, the ethereal figures floating within the spectral cage unnerved him. While the witch was preoccupied with her dark incantations, Lucas whispered to the captive spirits, "Hey ghosts, any way you can help a wolf out?" The spirits, their expressions etched with suffering, turned towards him. One spirit, braver than the rest, whispered back, "We can stop her, if only we were free." "How can we do that?" Lucas asked, his voice low. But before he could get an answer, the witch abruptly stopped her chanting and demanded another spirit. With a wave of her hand, another tormented soul was wrenched from the prison and drawn toward her. Its cries of pain and sorrow filled the hall, echoing off the walls in a chorus of despair. As the witch consumed the spirit, it disappeared, leaving nothing but a haunting silence in its wake. The remaining spirits watched in terror, knowing their fate would be the same. "Gross," Lucas commented, trying to mask his horror with humor. Suddenly, a massive bang echoed from the main door. "No, you're not," Lucas mumbled, hoping against hope. The door burst open, and there stood Elara, her werewolf form fearsome and imposing. The witch, unfazed, merely smiled. "Another," she said, amused. Lucas sighed. "That's my gig." But his words were tinged with worry. Elara leapt into action, but mid-jump her form shifted, the witch's power forcing her back into her human form. She landed awkwardly on the floor, the transformation leaving her disoriented and vulnerable. "My dear, you are helpless against me," the witch taunted, "but you will make a fine meal for what's coming." Lucas and Elara, now both powerless in the witch's lair, exchanged a look of desperation. They were caught in the clutches of a foe far more formidable than they had anticipated. Their usual strengths and abilities were useless here, and they needed to find another way to fight back. The witch, reveling in her control, turned her attention back to her ritual, unaware that Lucas and Elara, even in their weakened state, were far from defeated. They were survivors, fighters who had faced the darkness before and emerged victorious. They just needed to find a crack in the witch's armor, a weakness they could exploit. As the witch's attention was momentarily diverted, Lucas and Elara began to whisper a plan, their minds working together in perfect unison. Time was running out, but they weren't giving up just yet. The night was still theirs to reclaim. Chapter 6. The battle for the ghost town. Lucas, his eyes fixed on the unfolding chaos, quipped to Elara, "I thought you said the front door approach was reckless." Elara, focused and determined, replied, "I needed to get inside quickly. I have to open the prison." "I hope you have a plan," Lucas said, his voice edged with concern. "I do," Elara whispered, skillfully adjusting her bonds to reach into the small bag at her waist. She managed to pull out a torch, her hands still tied. At that moment, the witch triumphantly screamed, "It's done!" A small portal began to open, widening steadily until it was large enough for sinister figures to step through. Demons, grotesque and menacing, began to march into the hall. "This is bad," Lucas muttered, watching the demonic procession. The witch, elated, called out, "Come, my minions, come!" Elara leaned towards Lucas and whispered, "We don't have much time. I'm going to shine this torch on you. It's the moon torch. As soon as you change, smash that seal on the ghostly prison." The moon torch, a relic from a previous adventure, emitted artificial moonlight, and Elara hoped it would bypass the witch's power to prevent their transformation. As the demons flooded the room and the witch cackled with delight, Elara activated the torch. The light bathed Lucas, and to their relief, it worked. Lucas transformed, his werewolf form emerging with a ferocious snarl. The witch, noticing the disturbance, commanded her demons to attack. But Lucas, with newfound speed and strength, darted towards the cage containing the spirits. With a powerful swipe, he struck the seal. It shattered, releasing a torrent of ethereal figures. "No!" the witch cried out in horror. The freed spirits surged through the hallway, enveloping both the witch and her demonic minions. The witch, desperately trying to cast a protective spell, felt a presence behind her. She turned to see Elara, now in her werewolf form, bearing down on her with a menacing grin. Elara's claws swiped, preventing the witch from completing her incantations. In a whirlwind of spectral energy, the spirits converged on the witch, draining her life essence. The witch's power waned rapidly, her control over the demons faltering. As quickly as it had begun, the chaos subsided. The portal snapped shut, vanishing as if it had never been, taking the demons with it. The witch, now a withered husk, collapsed lifelessly to the ground. The spirits, their energy spent, faded away, finally free from their torment. Lucas and Elara, back in their human forms, surveyed the aftermath. The ghost town, once shrouded in darkness and despair, seemed to breathe a sigh of relief. The witch's hold over the town was broken, and peace was restored. The duo exchanged exhausted but satisfied looks. They had faced overwhelming odds and emerged victorious. The ghost town heist was over, but their journey continued. Together, they stepped out of the witch's hall, ready for whatever challenges awaited them next. Champions of the oppressed and defenders against the darkness. Final chapter, Whisper of Gratitude. The morning sun cast a gentle light over the town, bringing with it a sense of peace that had been absent for far too long. Inside their temporary base, Elara tended to Lucas's wounds, the remnants of their harrowing battle. "So the old front door assault, huh?" Lucas joked, wincing slightly as Elara applied a bandage. All right. Sometimes it's okay," Elara replied with a smile. As they shared a quiet moment, a ghostly figure materialized before them. It was the spirit Lucas had spoken to within the witch's cage. "I thank you," it said, its voice a soft echo of its former life. The spirit explained that the town had once been a resting place for spirits, a haven where they could find peace before moving on, but that all changed when the witch arrived. She ensnared them, feeding off their energy and trapping them in perpetual torment. The witch, the spirit continued, was in league with someone else, someone who left when she had us trapped. It mentioned a casino, a place that was more than it seemed, used as a front for darker purposes. Lucas and Elara listened intently, piecing together the information. "A casino," Lucas mused aloud. "Sounds like our next stop." The spirit nodded. "The Crimson Moon Casino. Be careful, for what lurks within is as sinister as the witch herself." The ghost then began to fade, its form becoming more translucent. "Thank you, for you have helped us find peace at last. We can finally rest." With those final words, the spirit vanished, leaving Lucas and Elara alone once again. They stood in silence for a moment, processing the spirit's words. The witch's reign of terror was over, but it seemed that their work was far from done. "Crimson Moon Casino," Elara said, determination in her voice. "Looks like we're going gambling." Lucas grinned, despite the ache in his ribs. "Let's just hope they're ready for the kind of trouble we bring." With their new lead, they packed their gear and set out towards their next adventure. The Crimson Moon Casino awaited, a new challenge in their ongoing battle against darkness and corruption. They would dive into this new mystery, ready to expose the secrets hidden within and free those enslaved by sinister forces. Lucas and Elara, once again, were on the move, their journey taking them deeper into a world where danger and intrigue lurked in every shadow. Their bond, strengthened by each challenge, was their greatest weapon against the evils they faced, and as the sun rose higher in the sky, they drove towards their next destination, united in their unyielding quest for justice. In the shadows of a world hidden from view, where the line between human and supernatural blurs, emerges a tale of two unlikely heroes. Welcome to the extraordinary saga of Lucas and Elara, werewolves bound not just by their shared nature, but by a relentless quest for justice. Every episode unravels a new chapter in their ongoing battle against the corrupt and the cruel. From the depths of the occult to the heights of corporate towers, they move in silence, striking where least expected. Their mission: to save the innocent and expose the malevolent. Armed with their wits, supernatural abilities, and a bond unbroken by adversity, they face adversaries both human and beyond. In a world where the prey can turn predator and the hunter becomes the hunted, Lucas and Elara navigate the grey areas of morality, justice, and loyalty. Join us as we delve into the heart of darkness, where danger lurks in every corner and courage is the only light. This is not just a journey through the night, it's a quest to bring balance to a world veiled in secrecy and rife with hidden threats. Get ready to enter a realm where myths come alive and heroes are born under the light of the moon. This is the world of Lucas and Elara. This is Lunar Shadows, the chronicles of Lucas and Elara. Chapter 1. The Crimson Moon Casino. Lucas and Elara, armed with the information provided by the spirit from the ghost town, set their sights on the Crimson Moon Casino. As they travelled towards the luxurious yet infamous establishment, they couldn't help but feel a sense of foreboding. En route, they pored over any piece of information they could find about the casino. It was lavish and popular, known for its extravagant shows and high-stakes games, but beneath its glitzy surface lay a sinister operation, one that enslaved its workers and hid dark secrets. Their research revealed that the person fronting the casino was closely associated with Ravenna, the witch they had recently defeated. "Looks like we're dealing with one of Ravenna's friends," Elara noted, her voice laced with contempt. Lucas examined the files they had gathered. He's either a warlock, a witch, a wizard, or some sort of dark magician, but we can't pin down exactly which. Elara mulled over the information. "We need to be cautious. If he's anything like Ravenna, he could be dangerous." As they approached the glowing lights of the Crimson Moon Casino, the air of excitement that surrounded the establishment did little to ease their apprehension. The building loomed ahead, an extravagant display of neon and noise, masking the malevolence within. "So what's the plan?" Elara asked as they parked their vehicle in the shadows across the street from the casino. Lucas grinned. "Through the front door, of course." Elara rolled her eyes, a smirk playing on her lips. "Your favorite approach." They exited the vehicle, adjusting their attire to blend in with the casino's clientele. Lucas donned a sharp suit, while Elara slipped into a sleek, elegant dress. They looked like any other high-rolling couple out for a night of gambling, but their purpose was far more serious. As they crossed the street and approached the casino's grand entrance, they steeled themselves for what lay ahead. Inside, they would face a warlock, or whatever he may be, a man capable of great magic and cruelty. They knew they had to tread carefully, gather information, and find a way to free the enslaved workers. The doors of the Crimson Moon Casino opened to them, revealing a world of opulence and excess. Lucas and Elara stepped inside, ready to unravel the dark mysteries hidden within and bring another tyrant to justice. The night at the casino promised danger and deception, but they were prepared to gamble with danger to save those who could not save themselves. It's time for a quick scare break. As we linger in these shadowy realms, a small favour I dare to ask. If my tales of terror bring you thrills, do not let our journey end here. Hit like, subscribe, and join our dark congregation. Chapter 2. Unveiling the Depths. Inside the bustling casino, Elara coolly played at the high-stakes tables, her chips disappearing as quickly as she laid them down. She appeared nonchalant, brushing off the losses as if money were inconsequential. Between hands, she subtly questioned some of the staff about the casino's ownership, but her inquiries yielded little more than evasive responses and forced smiles. Lucas, meanwhile, was at the slot machines, his luck no better than Elara's. The casino was a well-oiled machine designed to take money with little chance of winning. He too probed for information, but like Elara, he found nothing out of the ordinary. Just another place where dreams of fortune turned to dust. After a while, Lucas noticed something odd. A worker at the casino, inconspicuous at first, was keeping a close eye on him. Every move he made, the worker mirrored. Lucas discreetly made his way to Elara. "We got a tail," he whispered. They left the casino, the worker following them into the night. Outside, in a narrow alleyway, Lucas and Elara set up an ambush. As the man turned the corner, Lucas swiftly subdued him. "Looking for us?" Lucas asked, pinning the man against the wall. "Who are you?" Elara demanded. "Please, I mean no harm," the man pleaded, his voice tinged with desperation. "I was hoping you could help us." He was covered in bruises, evidence of physical abuse. Reluctantly, the man removed his coat, revealing the stumps where his wings once were. "I am a male fae," he said, introducing himself as Calum. His story was heartbreaking. He had been captured and forced to fight in underground battles hosted in the casino. These fights, he explained, pitted supernatural creatures against one another for the entertainment of high-stakes gamblers. The casino, Calum revealed, was run by a powerful warlock named Vorath. "He's a master of dark magic," Calum said. "None of us can escape. He has eyes everywhere, and he's too powerful for any of us to stop." Calum looked at Lucas and Elara with a glimmer of hope. "We need help. I've heard of you. Two beasts that help others." Suddenly, Calum tensed, his eyes darting around. "I have to return. His eye sees us. Help us," he pleaded before darting back into the casino. Lucas and Elara exchanged a look of concern and determination. "Underground fights, using supernaturals," Lucas said, processing the information. "Who is this Vorath, that he has the power to control these creatures?" Elara wondered aloud. "We need to plan," she declared. "This goes deeper than we thought." They retreated to their base, their minds racing with the gravity of the situation. Vorath wasn't just a warlock. He was a puppeteer, pulling the strings of the supernatural for his twisted games. Lucas and Elara knew they had to act, to dismantle Vorath's dark empire and free those he enslaved. The stakes were high, but so was their resolve. The planning for their most challenging mission yet had begun. Chapter 3. The underground arena. Beneath the opulent facade of the Crimson Moon Casino lay a hidden world, a grim arena built for savage battles. Enclosed by a massive, reinforced cage designed to contain the supernatural, it was a place where the desperate and the enslaved were pitted against each other for the amusement of a cruel audience. In the midst of the cage, a ferocious fight unfolded. A live vampire, his movements a blur of speed and precision, faced off against a formidable cat creature, its claws and agility a match for the vampire's prowess. The battle was brutal and intense, each combatant displaying their deadly abilities. The vampire, after a prolonged and exhausting fight, finally overcame his opponent. With a swift, decisive move, he sank his fangs into the creature's neck, ending the battle. The announcer's voice boomed over the loudspeaker. "This time, the vampire lives until the next fight." The crowd roared with a mix of excitement and bloodlust. High above the arena, in a secluded viewing box, Vorath watched with a satisfied smirk. His eyes glinted with malice as he signaled for the next fight. Calum, bruised and battered, was thrown into the cage. "This one has been consorting with the enemy," Vorath declared. "For his betrayal, he will face our champion." The crowd cheered, eager for more carnage. The announcer's voice filled the arena again. "Undefeated, with over 30 kills." A pause for dramatic effect, then, "Behold, the Minotaur." A hulking Minotaur entered the cage, its massive form and lethal horns imposing and terrifying. Calum, realizing the hopelessness of his situation, pleaded, "Please!" But his cries fell on deaf ears. The fight was over almost before it began. The Minotaur, with its overwhelming strength, dispatched Calum in mere seconds. The crowd erupted in cheers, their thirst for violence unabated. Back at Lucas and Elara's hideout, the gravity of the situation weighed heavily on them. Lucas, deep in thought, finally broke the silence. "I have a plan. I'll go back to the casino, flash some cash, and ask about the fights. I'll play the part of a high-stakes gambler interested in the underground battles." Elara looked at him, concern etched on her face, but she knew it was their best chance to infiltrate the operation and gather the information they needed to take down Vorath and free the supernatural captives. With resolve steeling their nerves, they prepared for the risky operation. Lucas would be walking into the lion's den, but with Elara's support and their combined wits and strength, they were ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead in the depths of the Crimson Moon Casino. Chapter 4: The Enchanted Duel. Lucas strode confidently into the Crimson Moon Casino, the clinking of his lavish cash display drawing the attention of many. He swaggered over to the high-stakes tables, casually inquiring about opportunities for larger wagers, something more thrilling. After a while, his display of wealth and interest in bigger stakes caught the right attention. A well-dressed attendant approached him with an invitation to a special area for high rollers. "Follow me, sir, for higher stakes," the attendant said, leading Lucas into the depths of the casino. The path wound deeper into the casino's bowels, finally opening into an opulent room where a single figure sat across a table laden with a luxurious buffet. The figure was Vorath, his presence commanding and sinister. "Come in, Lucas," Vorath greeted, a sly smile on his lips. "Have a seat. It is indeed an honor. Join me." Vorath stood and walked over to Lucas with a bottle of wine in hand. "Some wine," he offered, pouring a cup. Lucas declined, handing the cup back. "I don't drink, but thanks." Vorath then offered him some bread, which Lucas also refused. "No thanks," he said, returning it. "Do you mind if I indulge?" Vorath asked, his eyes holding a strange gleam. "It's been a very tiring day." "Of course. Go right ahead," Lucas replied, watching him warily. Vorath requested the salt, and as Lucas passed it to him, Vorath commanded, "Sit." The word was imbued with power, and Lucas found himself obeying involuntarily. "Fool!" Vorath laughed triumphantly. "Don't you know never to give wine, bread and salt to a magician?" He reveled in his victory. "Looks like we have our next contestant. Don't think I don't know what you did to my Ravenna. She was a fool to lose to someone like you, but I was fond of her." Lucas mesmerized and under Vorath's control, could do nothing but sit helplessly. In the underground arena, Lucas stood inside the cage and his demeanor blank and unresponsive. The announcer introduced him as Lucas, the slayer of witches, demons, and monsters. The crowd's anticipation grew. Then came the introduction of his opponent. Undefeated in 31 bouts, the Minotaur, the formidable creature, entered the cage, its presence daunting. The crowd booed as they saw Lucas, just a man, against the monstrous Minotaur. But then Vorath, watching from above, began to chant. Lucas's form started to change, transforming into his werewolf form, but with a ferocity heightened by Vorath's spell. The battle commenced with brutal intensity. The Minotaur, wielding immense strength and deadly horns, charged at Lucas. Lucas, despite being more feral than usual, was caught off guard and sustained injuries. The two behemoths clashed in a spectacle of fury and might. Lucas, driven by the spell-induced ferocity, fought back with vicious attacks. The battle was fierce, each blow resonating through the arena. After a prolonged and grueling combat, Lucas, bloodied and battered, finally overcame the Minotaur, becoming the new champion of the arena. But his victory was hollow, his eyes reflecting the absence of his own will, controlled by Vorath's dark magic. In the shadows of the arena, Elara watched in horror. Her partner and ally, now a puppet of the warlock, had won the fight, but was lost to Vorath's control. She knew she had to act fast to break the spell and free Lucas from Vorath's grasp. The stakes had never been higher, and time was running out. Chapter 5. An Unlikely Ally. Elara's attempt to leave the casino was abruptly halted by two imposing security guards. "Come with us," they commanded gruffly, escorting her through the winding corridors to Vorath's luxurious chamber. "Some wine?" Vorath offered, extending a cup towards her with a sardonic smile. Elara, her eyes blazing with defiance, threw the cup to the floor. "I don't think so," she retorted sharply. "Ah, the brains of the two," Vorath mused, his amusement evident. "This will indeed be interesting. You took from me my Ravenna. I shall truly enjoy this. It looks like we need a new fighter to face the champion, and you are just in time, my dear," he said, his laughter echoing ominously around the room. Elara's heart sank as she realized the gravity of her situation. Facing Lucas in his current feral state, especially with his injuries, was a horrifying prospect. How could she possibly fight the person closest to her, especially when he was not in control of his actions? Later that day, Vorath had Elara moved to the holding cells for the supernatural creatures. The cells were filled with a motley crew of supernatural beings, all showing signs of defeat and despair. They were broken, both physically and spiritually, their wills subdued by Vorath's enchantments. As Elara scanned the room, her eyes landed on a particular individual, a slender figure with a cunning glint in their eyes that seemed out of place amidst the despondency. This person, a sylph known for their mastery of air and wind, introduced themselves as Zephyr. Zephyr, despite their situation, had maintained a degree of resistance to Vorath's control. "I can still feel the air," they whispered to Elara. "He hasn't taken that from me. I can create a gust strong enough to disrupt the enchantments, but only for a moment. It's our only chance." Elara's mind raced as she pieced together a plan. A brief window of opportunity was all they needed to turn the tables on Vorath. "We need to coordinate this with Lucas's next fight. If we can break the enchantment during the chaos, it might give us the edge we need." Zephyr nodded in agreement, a flicker of hope igniting in their eyes. "I'll be ready," they affirmed. Elara returned to her cell, her resolve strengthened. She knew the odds were against them, but with Zephyr's help, and a well-timed plan, they had a fighting chance. The next battle in the arena would be more than a physical confrontation. It would be the moment they struck back against Vorath's tyranny. The fate of all the captives, including Lucas and herself, hinged on the success of their daring plan. Chapter 6. The Unleashing. Elara, her heart pounding, was led into the arena. She saw Lucas, the feral beast he had become, pacing the cage with a savage intensity. Even in his regular werewolf form, she knew he was a formidable opponent. Now, with the warlock's magic enhancing his ferocity, he was a deadly force of nature. Zephyr, the sylph, had found a newfound resistance to Vorath's control, thanks to their interaction with Elara. Morphing into air, Zephyr slipped out of the cell, unseen by guards or cameras. It was a daring move, the first of its kind since being under Vorath's spell. Elara stood in the cage, facing Lucas, who was restrained by chains and the strength of 10 large men. His eyes burned with an animalistic wrath she had never seen before. "Any time now," she muttered under her breath. As the chains were released, Lucas lunged toward her with a roar. His claws swiped through the air, aiming to tear her apart, but as he reached her, he encountered an invisible barrier. A shield of swirling air, conjured by Zephyr, protected Elara from his ferocious attacks. Vorath, watching from his viewing box, bellowed in rage. "What is this?" At that moment, a gust of cold air swept through the cells, freeing the supernatural captives. Vampires, fae, mermaids, sirens, the undead, a giant spider, and more burst forth, tearing through guards and scattering the crowd in panic. Vorath, enraged and powerful, began to chant, halting the supernaturals in their tracks. But then, a remarkable sight appeared. Lucas, driven by feral rage, was carried through the air by an unseen force straight towards Vorath's viewing box. The sylph dropped Lucas inside the box with Vorath. "No," the warlock exclaimed, desperately trying to reverse the spell, but Lucas, now a whirlwind of unbridled fury, launched a relentless attack. Vorath, realizing he was outmatched, vanished in a flash of light, his control over the casino and its captives dissolving. As the warlock disappeared, the supernatural creatures, now free from his enchantment, dispersed into the night, their forms fading into shadows and whispers. Lucas, released from the spell, collapsed to the floor, utterly exhausted but free from Vorath's control. Elara rushed to his side, relief washing over her as she saw the familiar glint of recognition returning to his eyes. The Crimson Moon Casino, once a facade for dark secrets and cruelty, was now silent. Lucas and Elara, weary but victorious, looked at each other. They had faced one of their toughest challenges yet and emerged triumphant. Together, they had freed the captives and vanquished a powerful foe. As dawn approached, casting the first light on a new day, they knew their journey was far from over. But for now, they had won a significant battle, not just against a warlock, but for the freedom and dignity of those who had been oppressed. The road ahead was uncertain, but one thing was clear. As long as they stood together, there was hope. Final chapter, A New Whisper. In the quiet of their makeshift hideout, Elara tended to Lucas's wounds with practiced hands. "This is becoming a habit," she remarked with a gentle smile, planting a kiss on his forehead. "I don't think that's the last we've seen of Vorath," Lucas mused, his voice tinged with concern. "He's too powerful. I think we were just playthings to him." As they conversed, a breeze stirred in the room, and Zephyr appeared before them. "Thank you, Zephyr. We would have been lost without your aid," Elara said, gratitude evident in her tone. "And I would have forever been too scared to act without yours," Zephyr replied. "Hey, Windy," Lucas greeted with a wry grin. Zephyr shared troubling news about his home, an old asylum, where he once lived in peace. Someone or something is disturbing the spirits there, using them in some way, Zephyr explained. I'm not sure if it's connected to Vorath, but it sounds similar to your previous encounter with Ravenna. Elara and Lucas exchanged a knowing look. It seemed their journey was far from over. Whispers in the asylum, Elara said thoughtfully. That's our next stop. They agreed to investigate the asylum. Rumors had spoken of haunted happenings, but if Zephyr's suspicions were correct, there was more to it. Secret experiments on patients, tormented souls needing their help. The asylum promised to be another chapter in their ongoing fight against the darkness. Lucas and Elara were prepared to dive into the mystery, to unearth the secrets of the asylum and bring peace to those suffering within its walls. With a new purpose, they packed their gear, ready to face the challenges ahead. The asylum awaited them, a place of whispers and shadows, holding secrets that only they could unravel. Zephyr, now a part of their journey, vanished with the wind, lifted by the hope that Lucas and Elara brought. And as the duo set off on their next adventure, the bond between them strengthened, ready to confront whatever lay hidden within the walls of the haunted asylum. Their mission was clear: to stop the inhumane practices and help the tormented souls find peace. Thank you for joining me on this chilling journey. If your thirst for the unknown and the unexplained is still unquenched, I invite you to delve deeper into the abyss of terror. Just beyond the veil of reality, another story awaits to send shivers down your spine. Dare to join me in the next video, where the unknown becomes known and the unseen seen. Until then, keep the lights dim and your mind open. This is Professor Shadow, signing off.